Why is Paris burning with jealousy as a 35-year-old African leader becomes a global icon? This is what happens when an uncompromising leader confronts a colonial power. You won't believe it though. France made an incredible 18 unsuccessful attempts to remove President Ibrahim Traoré. The world is trembling as Burkina Faso, under the leadership of its bold young president, has ventured to question centuries of French domination. However, how could Traoré save both his life and his position? Let's investigate. At the age of 35, Ibrahim Traoré became Africa's youngest leader in October 2022. His ascent was characterized by a wave of popular support rather than riches or political influence. As a military captain, Traoré was able to relate to his people's hardships because he had experienced them himself. His rise coincided with a severe crisis. Poverty was oppressive, insurgency was widespread, and people no longer trusted their government. Traoré's ascent was remarkable not only because of his age, but also because of his unwavering resolve to take on Burkina Faso's problems head-on. In contrast to his predecessors, Traoré didn't make hollow pledges. Rather, he presented a vision of Burkina Faso that was capable of independence and sovereignty. A lot of things need to be done. There are obstacles in your path. Keep your age out of your mind. You must aim high, even when your ambition may not be as lofty as you think. Traoré, however, didn't stop there. He started tearing down the exploitation structures that had put his nation under the shadow of its previous colonizer, France, as soon as he gained office. His frequently unrefined and unvarnished speeches struck a profound chord with the populace due to their genuineness. Traoré was one of them, not merely a leader. A man who knew what it was like to watch his country's riches go to others, while his own people struggled. In his statement, Traoré said, "We realized what it was about after the final troops departed Burkina Faso. The impacts came right after." She had overlooked the fact, however, that the people of Burkina Faso had embraced the same course as the rest of the globe after comprehending our message. We reorganized ourselves abruptly and swiftly. In Burkina Faso, we observed that all latent terrorist cells awoke. We restructured the army as fast as we could, at a rate never seen before. We established a number of units and outfitted them, even though there would be more in the future. And this arming is still going on today because our army needs to become a formidable force in the days and months ahead of what you see approaching Burkina Faso. But not everyone embraced his ascent. France swiftly became enraged at Traoré's audacious acts. A country that had long benefited from the wealth of Burkina Faso. However, what specifically made Traoré such a danger to Paris? Looking under the surface is necessary to comprehend France's hostility toward Traoré. Literally, one of Africa's biggest producers of gold, Burkina Faso, sent a major portion of its wealth to France for many years. French corporations dominated the gold mines through unfair trade agreements and business dealings, taking huge profits while leaving little for the Burkina Faso people. This young worker is employed in a Burkina Faso gold mine. Burkina Faso is among the world's poorest countries. France prints colonial coinage for gold-rich Burkina Faso. Rather, it asserts that 50% of all that ends up in the French treasury's coffers. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. Traoré broke this agreement, not merely messed with it. He eliminated one of France's main revenue streams by nationalizing important sectors and giving preference to local ownership. However, Traoré's opposition is not just economic. France has a strong symbolic bond with its former colonies in addition to a financial one. France used a combination of political meddling, cultural domination, and military presence to sustain its power in Africa for centuries. All of that is called into question by Traoré's conduct. He is making a strong statement by driving out French troops and closing French companies. The former colonizer is not necessary for Burkina Faso. He poses such a threat to France because of this disobedience. Losing access to gold isn't the only issue. It's about taking back the narrative that has maintained Africa's reliance on the West. Traoré is fighting more than simply France, though. He is fighting on behalf of his countrymen. And it's a battle that calls for audacious, unheard-of action. Turning our attention to West Africa's Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, the nation's military chief, has made serious charges against France. According to Traoré, Benin, Ivory Coast, and other West African countries are helping France destabilize Burkina Faso. According to Traoré, France has established 2 covert military installations in Benin with the intention of attacking Burkina Faso. He asserted that the terrorists who frequently attack Burkina Faso use these bases as a base of operations. The French military has now responded by refuting the charges. Military bases in Benin were rejected by the military. West African nations Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are moving away from their long-standing Western friends and toward military takeovers. In the meantime, the countries under military rule have strengthened their connections with Russia. What has it taken for Burkina Faso, a resource country, to defeat such a formidable foe? Traoré made his objectives apparent as soon as he assumed office. The removal of French military installations from Burkina Faso was one of his first presidential actions. This was a calculated move rather than merely a symbolic one. French forces had been present in the area for years, ostensibly to combat rebellion. Many Burkina Faso residents, however, thought that these facilities served more as a means of preserving French power than as a means of ensuring security. The public broadly supported Traoré's decision to eliminate these bases. It was a regaining of sovereignty as much as an act of resistance. Traoré didn't stop there, though. His focus shifted to French companies, many of which have conducted business in Burkina Faso with little consideration for the environmental impact or local labor rights. Traoré started the process of recovering his country's economy by driving these businesses out. But his cultural action was maybe the most radical. Traoré announced that Burkina Faso will no longer recognize French as an official language. His preference for native tongues, on the other hand, marked a departure from the colonial past that had long dominated the country's identity. There were repercussions for these acts. France's response was diplomatic isolation and economic pressure. However, Traoré's audacity motivated his followers and brought them together in a manner that few leaders have ever accomplished. However, there was a price for this onus. Due to his disobedience, Traoré became a physical as well as a political target. 18 attempts at assassination. Take a moment to comprehend that figure. It's more than simply a figure. It serves as a terrifying reminder of the risks Traoré is taking and the extent his enemies will go to. His instillation of dread in those who have long exploited Burkina Faso is evident in every attempt. A fear of the movement he represents as well as the man himself. It is astounding how many of these attempts there are. This is a concerted attempt to destroy him, not a leader avoiding the occasional errant attack. But why so many? Traoré's disobedience poses an existential threat for a global system based on inequality, rather than merely being a bother to the ruling class. Those who have profited from the status quo for many years are terrified by the prospect of change, which his leadership represents. Every unsuccessful attempt on Traoré's life is more than a victory for him personally. The triumph is symbolic. Every time he loaves, the world is sent a clear message. At all costs, Burkina Faso will not be silenced. The people of Burkina Faso, who view Traoré's tenacity as a mirror of their own fortitude and resolve, are likewise emboldened by his disobedience. There have been repeated threats against him. They originate from various directions. Even rogue forces inside their own nation seek instability to further their ambitions, while foreign powers seek to retain control and domestic dissidents fear losing influence. In his statement, Traoré said, "I can't be at the top of the state as a young guy. and I might prefer to be eating rasambala like everyone else under mangroves. In other words, to fully dedicate yourself to your country, to accept forgetting your youth, and to tolerate forgetting your life. One of the dangers is the unstable state in which we currently find ourselves. Because you have to survive in such a place if you want to get your act together. Additionally, you make enemies both inside and outside the boat by surviving to straighten it out. Therefore, we must deal with this destabilizing, murderous, and all-encompassing crisis. These assaults are not random. They are brutal in their goal, unrelenting in their frequency, and well-planned and coordinated. Traoré, nevertheless, isn't going to give up. He doesn't run away or become afraid in response to these attempts. It's a stronger determination to fight more fiercely. For Traoré, the struggle is not just about surviving. His goal is to provide a future for his nation that will last beyond his lifetime, not merely to preserve himself. His dedication to a vision that will outlive him is strengthened by every conspiracy against him, which feeds his mission. Traoré is special because of this persistent commitment. Traoré has maintained his focus on the greater picture, leaving a legacy of sovereignty, unity, and advancement for Burkina Faso, whereas many presidents under such intense pressure could retreat inward and concentrate only on their own self-preservation. Projects like the Renaissance City are relevant here, not to divert attention from the dangers he faces, but to demonstrate his conviction that genuine leadership is about making things happen, not merely surviving. Although Traoré's survival is impressive, what really makes him stand out is his capacity to flourish in the face of ongoing peril. In addition to being inspirational, his tenacity is revolutionary, sending a strong message to both his allies and adversaries. Burkina Faso's struggle for independence will continue despite all obstacles. Let's now discuss the Renaissance City and its significance. Imagine a metropolis that was constructed as a rebellious response to decades of exploitation rather than as a monument to foreign help. That's the city of the Renaissance, an expansive urban hub intended to convey a statement as well as highlight Burkina Faso's potential. Ibrahim Traoré has no intention of giving up. France's constant attempts to subvert Traoré's authority are reflected in every road, brick, and layout in the Renaissance City. For every attempt to destabilize Burkina Faso, economic threat, or murder plot, Traoré responds with audacious, real development. The Renaissance City is more than just a metropolis. It is a statement of the nation's tenacity and a live example of its resistance to be subdued or dominated. This is about changing the narrative, not simply about infrastructure. The idea that Western involvement is necessary for Africa's advancement has been perpetuated for far too long. That illusion is being broken by Traoré. Burkina Faso and Africa may thrive on their own terms, as demonstrated by the Renaissance City, which represents a departure from the reliance model. Every structure that emerges and every industry that thrives in this city is a testament to its inventiveness and independence. For Traoré, the Renaissance City is more than a location. It serves as a center for innovation, culture, and sustainability, and serves as an example of what an African country can accomplish when its citizens come first. With resources and expertise being directed toward developing industries that benefit the populace rather than foreign investors, local talent is at the center of this effort. The timing of this endeavor is even more impressive. Traoré is gaining ground as France is struggling with its diminished power. The Renaissance City emerges as a symbol of defiance and progress as France tries to recover from the trauma of losing control of Burkina Faso. There is no more obvious contrast. While one is building a brave, independent future, the other is collapsing under the weight of its colonial history. The Renaissance City is a solution, not only a project. It is Traoré's method of demonstrating that Burkina Faso's aspirations for independence would not waver, regardless of the number of threats or attempts made against him. It is a challenge to the world and a pledge to his people. Burkina Faso will flourish and do so according to its own terms, not just survive. What happens to France after all of these efforts and Traoré's tenacity? The colonial past of France was more than just a period in its history. It served as the cornerstone of its contemporary economy. The wealth taken from Africa supported French industry, improved France's reputation internationally, and constructed Paris's infrastructure. The latest uprising in Burkina Faso is not a unique incident. It's the breakdown of a centuries-old colonial tactic used by Europe. Consider the economy of France as a Jenga tower. Each African country extracts another block when it chooses to recover its riches. France lost more than simply gold mines when Burkina Faso refused to cooperate. Its dominance in West Africa was based on this. This loss has had a significant effect. French businesses that used to control African markets are frantically looking for alternatives. The carefully constructed image of Paris as an African partner is falling apart. What about the monetary losses? Stumbling. As its waning influence in Africa sends shockwaves through global markets, France is coping with the immediate economic consequences as well as the repercussions on European stability. However, Burkina Faso's disobedience isn't only harming France's economy. It is contesting its worldwide identity. France's post-colonial image as an ally and defender of Africa is eroding, revealing the exploitation that lies underlying it. And when France falters, Burkina Faso is moving toward independence and innovation under Traoré's leadership. Under Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso is prospering while France struggles because of a novel approach to growth and government. From the inside out, Traoré's concept is straightforward. His daring first action of creating a state-owned bank made it very evident that Burkina Faso would no longer be dependent on foreign financial institutions with conditions. There is more to this bank than just deposits. It's an empowerment tool. It invests in renewable energy projects that are suited to Burkina Faso's particular requirements, finances regional companies, and backs agricultural projects. Under Traoré's leadership, agriculture, once disregarded in favor of exporting raw materials, has gained priority. Modern equipment and training are being given to farmers, enabling them to increase yields and feed a larger population. This change boosts the local economy and produces jobs in addition to lowering dependency on imports. Another essential component of Burkina Faso's new course is renewable energy. Traoré is aware of the possibilities of solar energy in a nation that receives a lot of sunlight. Burkina Faso is moving toward energy independence, which is a crucial component of escaping foreign domination, by funding solar farms and other small-scale renewable initiatives. However, Traoré's emphasis on innovation and teaching is arguably his most noteworthy leadership quality. Traoré is aware that a self-sufficient Burkina Faso need a new generation of leaders, innovators, and thinkers to continue the advancements he initiated. He's sowing the seeds for a better future with investments in technology, vocational training programs, and scholarships. Burkina Faso's strategy is already encouraging other African countries to reconsider their dependence on the West, and the world is watching. However, what is the extent of this influence? Ibrahim Traoré's rejection of Paris is a continental awakening as much as a national story. Leaders and civilians alike throughout Africa are turning to Burkina Faso as an example of what might happen when a country puts its citizens' needs ahead of its own. Consider Mali, which just expelled French troops in a similar manner to Burkina Faso. For example, Guinea is reviewing its trade agreements to guarantee a more fair allocation of resources. Other countries are now being forced to confront their ties with the West as a result of Traoré's actions. This change goes beyond politics. It has to do with culture. African countries are losing the traces of colonial influence and embracing their identities, languages, and customs more and more. Burkina Faso is at the center of the growing Pan-Africanist movement, which stresses unity and independence throughout the continent. It's not an easy road, though. Similar movements throughout Africa are being repressed by the same interests that oppose Burkina Faso. Among the strategies being employed to keep control include media campaigns, economic sanctions, and clandestine operations. However, the increasing unity among African countries raises the possibility that things might be changing this time. The topic comes up as more nations support the notion of an Africa bound together by sovereignty and purpose. How do we maintain this momentum? And in a situation like this, how can leaders like Traoré remain safe? There are hazards associated with any revolution, and Traoré's is no different. His audacious behavior has made him a target for both internal forces threatening change and external powers. The struggle for independence in Burkina Faso has garnered international interest, and danger accompanies that attentiveness. The numerous assassination attempts that Traoré has survived serve as a sobering reminder of the risks, but the threat of internal betrayal is a more subtle one. Many African presidents who tried to question the existing quo in the past were overthrown by internal strife rather than by outside forces. Traoré's relationship with the people is both his greatest asset and his worst weakness. Although this grassroots support has protected him, it also puts him in risk all the time. He makes cautious decisions by depending on a close-knit inner circle and an expanding network of sympathizers throughout Africa. However, the dangers extend beyond the individual. Burkina Faso itself faces ongoing threats of diplomatic isolation, economic reprisals, and perhaps military action. Not only will Traoré's survival skills be put to the test, but so will his capacity to shield his country from these outside threats. However, Traoré wins new fans for each threat he encounters. A generation of Africans is being inspired to hope in an exploitation-free future by his tenacity. Burkina Faso is undoubtedly at the forefront of a new era, even though his journey is far from finished. The Chronicle of Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traoré is about the struggle for independence by multiple countries. It's the beginning of something much bigger. Nations all around the continent are starting to see the value of unity and their combined might. There is more to the waning of Western power in Africa than a simple change in politics. History is being rewritten. Africa was viewed as a resource to be plundered for millennia. It is now becoming an influential force, a continent full with possibilities, ingenuity, and fortitude. This change is symbolized by Traoré's leadership. His deeds have demonstrated that it is feasible to take on and defeat the most powerful countries in the world. However, he has also set the stage for the future of an independent, unified, and unapologetically proud Africa. The rest of Africa looks on with interest as Burkina Faso is constructing its future. How far Africa will climb is the question, not if it can. And one thing is evident as Traoré takes the lead. This is only the start. Do you believe that Traoré can be stopped by assassination attempts? What do you think will happen when France falls? What do you think about Western interference in Africa's affairs? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.